What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering, where we talk the world of sports, wagering, and just having a good time. SJ, we're a little delayed here this week from the weekend, but obviously this time of year gets busy for everybody with all kinds of things happening. But we had Mother's Day this past weekend. Did Mom get treated right in your household?
I mean, we haven't any complaints, so I'm guessing we're in good shape. It's still being spoken to, so we'll take that as a yes.
Nobody's sleeping outside or in other locations. That's always good. It went well here too. We kind of played it low key, really, for the most part for us, but sometimes that's that's okay too. I don't mind it that way. But yeah, hope all the moms out there had a great weekend and were treated properly by their youngins. We know that goes a long way these days, so hopefully that's the case for you. As we get into it here, we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of things, just touch briefly on what's going on with the playoffs, the NHL and the NBA. We'll also be getting into a little bit of what we've had on our picks here recently for you, and we'll touch on a few random college football topics that have popped up here in the last week, and may sneak in a couple of other things for you real quick as well. But that's kind of what we've got on the slate here for you on the program as we get rolling. But as we get started, we always like to talk about what's lubricating our vocal cords here for you. And SJ, what do you got pouring here this week?
Well, I went over the weekend, did a little sampler pack action. I don't know, it's nice when you haven't had a couple or three of them that are on there. So you're like, I might as well try this out. But the one that caught my eye isn't one actually I'm sipping on tonight. And this is from Great Divide, but it's a Colorado company. They're somewhere out there in that mountain world.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact location, but either way, it's out that way. And then, but I went with it's called the Love and Lemons Lemonade Ale, which I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested to try that. But what caught my eye was they had a strawberry rhubarb sour. So I'm with the sour, so that's why I grabbed it. And I mean, I don't think it was bad. It was pretty good. It wasn't like my favorite sour, and we've mentioned before, it's like with those, that's a type of beer. It's like there's a very like fine, what do you call it? To hit it just right. It takes a very, there's some skill set there. And I'm not saying it's like a total miss on this one, but to get that perfect sour, it's a challenge. So I don't know if that necessarily hit like exactly what I was looking for, but it was still pretty quality. But this one actually, this lemonade ale really surprised me. And to me, I mean, I don't know. I think I'm pretty capable to speak on the palate here, at least when it comes to sours. And to me, this drink's more like a sour than the other. I don't know if there's just my taste buds pick something else up or what, but they're both, good beers. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely would, I'd probably grab like a 6-pack, maybe even a 12 of this, because this could be a good summer beer too. But nice. I will say with that Great Divide company, like at least in this pack there, you're getting some bang with your buck. This is the lightest one in there and it's 5%. I think that sour was like above 6. They had an IPA in there that was like about 7. And then I think that what is it? The Samurai that they make, the Samurai Lager. I think that's right about 5 too. So you're getting some good bang for your buck on top of everything.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, sounds it's a definitely a good pack to come across. We always like that when you're getting multiple things to try and they turn out to be pretty good beers. So that's a good combo. What do they call it? Off the wagon, on the wagon? I don't even know which one's which anymore. But
hopefully after 30 days, you're upside down on that wagon. Can't catch him back up.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch back up here to whatever direction I'm going. But yeah, I have had a couple, and I will say first off, this isn't the one I'm drinking, but yes, the Corona Sun Brews. Dynamite. That stuff is good. That's going to be a problem.
Dangerous though, but it's one of those that's like almost like too good to. You're still getting a little bit of ABV in there, but it goes down real smooth.
Oh man, yeah. It is pretty sweet, so it's not like you're going to drink a ton of them, but I could see drinking a handful of them on a good hot summer day. Very good stuff. I even got some feedbacks from some others after I posted something on Snapchat that they're like, oh yeah, the Sun Brews, man, those are good. So yeah, everybody's getting on board. I was a little surprised just because you're kind of expecting a little bit of that Corona taste in there, but you really don't get that at all. So if you're somebody that's like, oh, I hate Corona, well, don't stop that from trying this, because it is pretty good. The one I am drinking here, though, I just picked this up, and I think this is kind of cool. just because of it's a good beer, and then it's got an interesting story behind it too. The folks at Big Grove Brewery over in the Coralville area, they have Des Moines location as well. I've always been a fan of their stuff. They make a lot of good beers. Even though it's from a part of the state, I'm not a fan of their athletics, but they support good stuff around the state. And they've got this one that they just put out that this is the first time I've seen it, I guess. It's called Neighborhood Beer. So they're going back to kind of their roots. They started in Solon, Iowa. That's originally where the brewery began. And this was one of the beers, I guess, that they kind of started with. And so they're going back to those roots and brewing this beer and giving it out to everybody. And then the cool thing about it is they're giving back a little bit as well. So they call it the neighborhood beer, and then they're also letting folks kind of try to put their name in the ring to get some micro grants to help out something in their neighborhood. So I don't know all the details about how it works. I haven't got that far into it yet, but pretty cool idea, and nice that you always see those stories of giving back a little bit, and I think that's a great idea. So it is a good beer. I appreciate it. It's just a simple. They call it good drinking lager, and I don't disagree. This is a good solid straight up beer, 4.5%. And I enjoy it, so I'd recommend grabbing it if you track it down. And maybe I'll find out some more on the micro grant side and see if there's any cool stories that's followed up from that. But that's what we're sipping on here. So those are our shout outs and recommendations. As always, if you have something you want to send our way, make us have a try of, feel free to hit us up on social media. We'll get connected with that stuff and do that. As we get into it, though, here, let's start off just talking about what's really going on in the sports world at the moment. NBA, NHL playoffs still rolling on. In the NBA, we've got the old New York Knickerbockers up 3-1 now over the Boston Celtics, 121-113 last night, the win. Of course, big story out of that is Jason Tatum appears to be done for an awful long time as he got wheelchaired out of the facility there. It looked like possibly an Achilles situation there for him. So unfortunate. You hate to see a star go down in any series, whatever it may be. But regardless, it still looked like the Knicks are probably the better team here in this series, and they're proving that they have a pretty good chance to move on and make some more noise down the road.
Yeah, that's the thing with this series. And then I guess overall it is, people always, ask if we want to see some different teams in there. Well, you got it this year because there's a lot of, whether they be young or just new, new franchise that haven't been this far in a while. You're getting that this postseason. And like you mentioned with the Tatum injury, I mean, you want a team at full strength. You don't want that to be the reason. But at the same time, Boston is imploded equally as the Knicks have took charge of games in big moments. So there's obviously you have a better chance with him, but I can't get to the argument of people of saying oh, that's the reason they lost. If anybody brings that up, but the Knicks, if they win this series, they were just the better team because they won 2 times. Wouldn't use at full strength, and even then it was kind of going the Knicks way when that happened anyway. So that is unfortunate. I mean, and on the other side though, in the West, I do put a little bit more. Kind of hear that argument more when it comes to Golden State because Curry, I mean, the game that they won, quote, with him, he played one quarter barely, and they just kind of rode over. And I mean, if Draymond's going to hit 5 threes, of course it's going to be a good night. And I think that's the same game that he'll hit 10 or 7 or 8 threes or whatever he came up with. So, and that's the kind of performance you need without a Curry, and that's really tough to ask for. And even last night, if they don't fall down, it was a 3 or 4 point game. You get down by 20, and then you still, final score looks somewhat respectable, but you don't have that lapse there and you're still in it. So that one's a little bit more kind of on the bummer side of, a team losing, not being full strength. But then again, you say you got to build that roster a little deeper and give them some more help because you can't be, I know there's always the superstar and the big name and the guy gets all the credit, but there's good teams. There's more than just, kind of the face value of it that fans see and oh, this guy does everything. Well, actually there's a guy that plays 10 and 12 minutes and comes in and gets you 15 points and 7 or 8 rebounds or is an assist guy or plays defense. So, and then they don't have that. Even, you look at Butler, I'm never a Butler guy, but man, he's been dreadful. I think I know he put up some decent point there the game before last, but it was kind of what garbage time points. Yeah. It's honestly, Kuminga's been the only one that's been able to consistent and kind of keep him in it. Green's done his role. He's just getting older, so you can't expect much of him, and he'll just kind of streaky hit or miss. But when they brought over Butler, it was to kind of be you're going to be like, the Wade to the LeBron, or the, kind of the second guy there, the, the Pippen to the Jordan, if you will, whatever. And he hasn't done any bit of that. And it's kind of surprising considering how good he was in Miami in that postseason.
Yeah, no doubt. He's done that in the past for sure. And I think even a lot of people thought that towards the end of the regular season when he started to gel a little bit and they were playing better, thought maybe he can be that guy for him. But yeah, it just hasn't panned out really here in the playoffs. You mentioned Wolves winning at 117-110 last night. They're up 3-1 now in that series there. A couple of series that'll be happening here tonight as we record this. Pacers with a chance to close it out against the Cavs. They're up 3-1 in that series. And then Nuggets and Thunder are playing tonight. They're tied 2-2, so some good stuff going on there. Obviously, with the Pacers, kind of the shock of last game. I mean, you have Cleveland play so well the game before. Donovan Mitchell looked like he's unstoppable. And then he kind of disappears in game 4, and you're down 40 points at halftime. Like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the kind of some of these series of swings we've seen, even in Oklahoma City and Denver, they've either been close or been total drubbings. Especially on the Oklahoma City side, they had a bigger victory than Denver's probably had in the series. But either way, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. You're like, it's a series, you're playing the same team. I get that it's not the same game every night. But as far as, what you have to prepare for in your game plan and that stuff, that should all stay pretty similar. You're not going to do too much different once the series gets going. And even then, it's like you're just kind of managing the minutes, seeing who's hot, getting them more touches and that type of thing. You're not exactly like scheming up every game. So to go from, that kind of, I mean, the first 3 games were all, like one possession type of victories. Yeah. And then it just like, it's over by, end of the first quarter is almost over practically by halftime, definitely. So yeah, that was, I wasn't able to catch the first part of the game, and I get to where I can turn it on and I see that, I'm like, well, I guess no need to watch this one. Yeah. Sometimes that's good, I guess, if you if that's your team, whatever. But as far as like, I was like, I kind of wanted to watch some basketball. I guess I'll have to wait till the late game. That sucked a little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes nice to save time, but other times, disappointing in that fact as well. But just weird. And of course, from what do we talk about a lot too, our perspective is from a wagering standpoint. Mm-hmm. How the hell do you wrap your head around that stuff when the games themselves are swinging 20, 30 points at a time? It's really hard to keep up with.
Yeah, there's no spreads that are going to even, if you're hitting 10 in this postseason, it's like, oh, something's crazy. That's kind of a big deal. I might want to take that to cover because that's a big number. That's, if you notice, and then people have been following online, I've really been sticking to those props just because it's been so up and down. And I know, like tonight, you probably feel pretty confident with the Pacers covering a number just because of how that game played out. And you got to figure down 3-1. That kind of just broke your spirit there. And I expect Mitchell to go off, but other than that, I just don't think they can really keep pace with them. But I guess we'll find out here tonight. Could be a 50-point swing the other way. Who knows?
Yeah. I'll admit the game just started, but I'm on that number, and Pacers were getting 10, so it's like, okay, they can stay within that at least. If they're going to lose, it's not going to be that much, I don't think. Right. But just weird and hard to, like you said, maybe it kind of the props is the way to go and stick with that and that side of things. As far as that is concerned, SJ, when you're trying some of that, has there been something here in this postseason that you feel like has been better than another thing, or has it just kind of been hit and miss?
Oh, actually the one I've had a lot of success with is just the 3 points. So total, their over under is right to go with. I know you'll notice a lot of books lately, and this has been like a shift. Is it's good in a way and it's not good in a way. So I guess 2 things here. First is which to me it helps me a little bit, and I kind of like this, but I can see where this could get in trouble. Is they'll put, like, let's say if it's threes or assists or points or whatever. So when you're kind of picking a over under or like 10 points plus or whatever, by the player's little picture and name there, it'll just have like what they're averaging, but it'll have like for the whole season. So you got to get inside the numbers, and I'm breaking it, not saying they're all right, but I've had to hit on a pretty good clip there, for the most part. But I'm gonna, I'd zero in on either just the series or even the last couple 3 games. If it's a longer series, you get to like 7 games or a 6 game. Don't worry about maybe games 1 or 2 or throw out, like a game like last night where, Cleveland gets boat raced. Like that just doesn't count. Doesn't matter what happened in there. It's just kind of anomaly, one of those things. So that's a little bit, I can see the benefits of it, but I can also see where they're using it as a bit of a tactic to kind of get people to be like, oh, they're averaging 5 points, but maybe or 5 assists, but maybe they had like 10 in one game, and then last 2 games have only like one each or something like, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
or evens out. So then they're going to get you to go over when that average is kind of like manipulated by that standout game where it's not a consistent type of performance. So obviously most people can realize that, but just keep in mind when you're doing this stuff, it's not nothing's face value.
Well, and that's something too that I will say that is frustrating as far as like just from a gambler's perspective of like information and stuff. Like sometimes you get just like such the bare minimum. Like in it, I guess what sucks too is within those apps. Why can't we at least have like statistical records of games and at least scores? Like, because then you have to go back to your other sports app, and look through schedules. Like, why can't we do a little bit of that within the universe that you're in? It just, to me, it's just kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, I realize the book doesn't want to help you, but, and there's services out there too, I'm sure, that you subscribe and get really deep in the weeds. But, the basic stuff, I just think that should be more readily available.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I mean, the same with you. You got a couple, 3 windows open there. You're looking at, whatever app you might use, just, the stats. You got a stats app and you got a book, a sportsbook app. And as of now, that's the best way to do it. But you're right, it is a little bit back and forth. But just take your time with that and just kind of I guess do the best you can with the resources available. It's like and always just those dang what do I call it, and I'm not even saying like a bet against the parlay, because I mean you can play them, and some of the bets I've put out is like, I might not always be betting the parlay, but I want to put it out like this would be your odds if you bet these 3 or whatever. Yeah. Like you can bet singles, you can pick 2, just bet 1 if you like the thing, go whatever. But man, those whatever, what do they call them? Like I don't know, like the specials or whatever. Just always steer clear. I always say that every time I add it in, just steer clear of that crap, because that's somebody being paid to just kind of be a brand ambassador, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get those aggregates sometimes. It's like, here's these 6 things together tonight. Like, okay, like it may sound good because you put a fancy name and title at the top of it, but these really have nothing to do with each other, and the likelihood of them happening is pretty much 0 to none. So that's why they want you to do it. But yeah, it's unfortunate. That's such a hard fine line too, I think, to ride as a sports gambler. Like, obviously we've talked about, usually the smart thing to do is to go piece by piece, going by one game, one team, or one game, couple props, or one prop, but obviously it's still tempting sometimes if you think a couple of things are going to happen, or you just want to watch a couple of games together, you put something together for both of them because, well, it's going to get me more than my $5 or whatever. I could get a little return if I hit it tonight, kind of thing. You don't want to like rely on that all the time. I think it's fine to do that as a flyer once in a while, but I guess for the average Joe, it's probably hard to resist doing that all the time. Is the problem?
Yeah, that you see that $1 bet can get you 75 or $100 or something. You're like, well, what's $1? But I mean, if you're gonna have fun with it, go ahead. But I would say, like, I mean, even what I do a lot of times, like I might like, if I like something a lot, I'll go a little, just like we do with the emojis, go a little heavy on it. Mm-hmm. Let this stay within your budget or whatever you've allotted yourself for that game or for that week or whatever, and just go a little heavy on that one, and then do a fun bet on the side with a little bit less money, because even then you still might, you might make up that bet that you lose that you were confident in, with a little parlay on the side. So there's ways around. Of course, there's always different avenues to at least get some money back on some of your bets. But yeah, and then also just, I don't know, I guess this is a practice I have. Just I try not to like bet more than one thing within like another group or parlay, because it's tempting when you're like, you might think, oh, this team's gonna win, so I'll go with this prop, and then I like these 2 teams, so you pick the same team to win with another one. Like, I don't know, it just seems like whenever you do that, you end up losing both because you're like so confident with one thing. So unless it's like, but even then, if it's like a big given, you're probably not going to win a lot of money back off it. So I don't know. That's just something I don't know. I just kind of like, I don't seem that much luck with it, so I just kind of take it out of my rotation.
Yeah. Stanley Cup playoffs still rolling along. Those poor fans up north in Toronto. It's back to a 2-2 series as the Panthers won the last game 2-0 on Sunday. You probably half expected it, even if you're a fan of the team. Just because, I mean, A, it is the defending champions that you're playing, and B, the history is, not in your favor. So you know you're going to have to kind of sweat things and bite the nails a little bit, but it has been a good series. It's fun to watch. Those two teams are great. I still think Toronto's a really good team, and I think that they probably still pull the series off, in my opinion, but it's going to be difficult. Now, the game that will happen here tonight as we're going is Jets and Stars. That series is led right now by the Stars, up 2-1 after they won 5-2 on Sunday. That's a fun series. Dallas is a fun team to watch, and they get up and down pretty good. And then the Hurricanes lead 3-1 over the Capitals now after a 5-2 win last night. They just play so damn fast. The Hurricanes they're a different breed. They like to get shots off. I was talking to my dad. He's a Capitals fan, but I was talking to him on Saturday, and he's like, "Yeah, man, that game we just had last night." He's like, "They had 69 shots on goal." It's like, that is just incredible. And compared to like the Capitals, they had like I think 20 some in that same game. And anytime that's happening, you as a fan, you just feel like you're robbed if you don't win the game. Because, like, odds are shit's going to happen. A couple of those are going to go in because we all know that hockey has some of those just dumb luck, bounces off of somebody or a stick or whatever.
Someone's in the goalie's line aside or something. You just don't see the puck coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're that good at putting it on net, then, man, you got a pretty good shot to win. And that's how the Hurricanes play. And they seem to be doing pretty good with that. And then the Oilers have found some new life here. I was kind of down on them a little bit early on in this run, but they're back at it. They're up 3-1 over the Golden Knights after a 3-0 win there last night. So it's looking like maybe Connor McDavid might get his time to shine there in the sun a little bit. So that's interesting. I did get lucky too, by the way, last night. I had a couple of those things that came through for me with both of the puck spreads on those games, and then also getting a good under total on that Edmonton Golden Knights game. So that one came through. So nice little pocket change to return on that. So it's been fun. Those games will continue to be awesome to watch as they always are, and we'll continue to follow along with those. And of course, as we see it, we'll give you those bets. Follow us on Twitter at SGMBets, at Cherokee CP. We'll put that stuff out there for you. And of course, like we said, usually put it out there maybe in a form that's like showing you what things could be on their own and then together, and then you decide, what you like out of that piece by piece. So make sure you're following us and check that out. SJ2, I don't know, briefly real quick here too, there was another fight card here over the weekend that you were on a couple of things. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, we got a little snake bit this week, and it's like, honestly, like, decisions, basically close ones. You just kind of, like we say with the confidence and stuff, those were the whiskey bets, if you will. So on the lower end of things, weren't going too heavy. But I mean, one of them, the only one I was really mad about was the Jose Aldo, and it ended up being potentially his last fight. Cause he said he retired, and then like the next day he said his whatever social media post says that may have been my last fight. So we'll see. But I mean, I thought he won. I mean, a lot of people did too. Just like one of those, like, man, that one kind of hurt because that was pretty close. The other two in the co-main event, I thought was like that was more of like a 50-50. But the main event, what do you call it? Jack Della Maddalena kind of put it on Bilal Muhammad. So that was just like a straight loss. But like I said, the one I went most heavy on was that first one, that Jasmine Jasdavicius by submission, and she did it in like less than or like right around a minute. So that's always nice. Then I was like, all right, I was kind of worked up. It's like I need this one to hit pretty big, and it was quick, so it was stress free. But as kind of that was more of kind of the story of the night was the judging maybe a little bit not great. So that seems to come out here and there with all combat fights, just kind of comes up, and then people are pissed about it for a few days, and it just goes away until it happens again. But I guess that was kind of the story. There's a lot of decisions, but it is tough. Like I always say with a sport like that, there's no it's not like where it's like here's a point, here's a goal, here's a run. You don't have clear scoring, so if it's left up for debate, that's kind of the result you get sometimes. So not the best night, but we'll bounce back, and we got some decent boxing coming up, and also there'll be some more UFC here coming up. I think a couple of weeks there, they get back on the pay-per-view scene. So we'll keep watching those and follow up with some big plays here. I know they had some big announcements for their summer fights, like what they call International Fight Week there at the end of June, early July. Got a big card coming up there in Vegas. So we'll start looking at that and get some good picks as the weeks come up.
All right. So again, yeah, keep following along there on socials, and SJ will be pumping that stuff out there for you as well. Now, moving on to another sport, of course, that we always talk about a lot here on the program is the college football world. There has been a few little pieces and nuggets leaking out here recently. One note that you sent over to me, and this is not really, I think, a surprise to anybody, but definitely seems to be where this is going now for sure, is the Power Four commissioners met in New York recently, and Pete Thamel reported that there's continued focus on a 16-team playoff that would start in 2026. They said that 16 is becoming more preferred, and no format decision, of course, then with that as well. I think this is obviously, I think we've all known that this is what's kind of going that direction, just because especially the two biggest conferences have seemed to be on that wagon. But I still think, though, at some point too, if we're going to go this direction, it also is going to require possibly some more realignment or some more changes on how these conferences are scheduled, or in how we schedule games as well. That's going to be the biggest thing, is how you shake this out. Because I think at the end of the day, if you end up with a 16-team conference, you probably just don't have buys and you just play it straight out. I don't know. I mean, to me, that's how it would work. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on how that impacts anything?
I mean, I guess the thing I always wonder is like why they, because if this comes out, this news, it's like pretty much basically a done deal almost. Just gotta freaking figure out how to do it. So it's almost like, are they just doing this to give like the ADs and schools time to like, okay, now you better get to work about tweaking your schedule and get it the way it's going to need to be till you get to that point. And I know there's been talk about like basically if this does happen, which sounds like it's a pretty good likelihood, that the power conferences, what's left, the four and the main ones are going to have to, everyone's going to be playing 9 conference games. And we know the one school or one set of schools that doesn't like to do that is down south there. So, they're going to have to get on board with this. That's I honestly think that's the main thing holding all this up, is their, kind of reluctance and want to do what they want to do type of thing. But I'm sure that'll, you start throwing the money around, and they realize how the playoff played out last year, and they don't quite have the leverage that they maybe would have had they been the last, 3 of the last 4 teams from their conference. So then maybe you got them in a good spot now where that's part of maybe why they're doing it now. It's a good time to negotiate, and the leverage isn't on the side where it appears to be, or people just bow down to them where they usually think they have all that stroke, but now it's not there. So I mean, I guess it's fine, whatever. I don't know if I've kind of just we literally just got the 12 teams, I don't know if this is like a failure yet. Like,
how do we know this sucks?
We need to let it play out a little bit before we just move on. So I'm not necessarily like excited about it. I'm not like against it. I'm just like, I don't know if it needs to be done just yet, but maybe whoever the power brokers are and the people in charge is like, if we don't do it now, we're not going to get it done for how long? And then it's just going to be year after year complaining, because now it's going to be 17 and 18 are going to be, all up in a tizzy when they don't make the freaking thing. So it just shifts. Cause I mean, you look at March Madness, the teams that don't get in out of 68 teams are like, feel like they've been robbed somehow. So what do you imagine? It's only 16, of course, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are going to be like, we should have been in there. So but it does definitely have to be like level, no matter whatever you do. It's like, and even I know a lot of people will, you need the money and you got to support the smaller schools. But I'm like, if you're getting to this point, I think you gotta be playing more of that Power 4 level, and almost get rid of those, cupcake, get rid of the Talladega Techs and all that of the world, and start playing the real football against real teams. If you're gonna be doing this, and basically you're kind of moving towards that, I guess, whatever you want to call it, like football league, kind of branched off from D1 football. You got to start playing real football then.
Yeah, and what's funny is, that's been talked about and like supposedly pressured by some of these major conferences for a long time, and it's never been enforced. Like, it's like, oh, you have to do this. Well, nobody's done it, so what's the hell is different now? And then, and I think you're, from a whole standpoint, I realize some conferences probably don't give a shit because, like, we just do what we do, but I think from an outside fan's perspective, it's got to be the same across the board. All the conferences need to be playing the same amount of conference games, or you need to be playing the same amount of power whatever teams all throughout the season, and just make it uniform. I mean, I think that's all people are asking for. as then because then that's as fair as it can be. Yeah, you're still going to end up with so and so gets the easier schedule this year, but you can't help that. That's always going to happen. So
well, you got to do them so far in advance that you don't know who's going to be good 2 or 3 years down the road, or even next year. So that's I mean that's always going to be there, like you said. And I don't know, you just got to. I mean, the problem I think the biggest issue is college football has always had that deal of like if you're not undefeated, you're not worthy of a championship, and it's kind of moved away from that now because I mean even with 12 teams, depending on what conference you're coming from, 3 or 4 losses, you still might be in there, depending on who you lost to and when you lost and how you lost. So I think that's part of it, just getting over the fact that you don't necessarily doesn't just because you have 3 or 4 losses doesn't make you like less worthy than a team with 1 loss if you're not playing the same type of schedule.
Yeah, and I'm with you on the why the hell do we have to change this right away? We just did this, and what's so funny to me too is like everybody, like the college football fans, were begging for something to happen for so damn long. And it took so long for them to figure it out. Everybody get on board, and it has to be right. And finally, when the big players decided, oh, okay, this sounds good, we'll do it now. Because after everything had, fallen to the way it did with the cards,
they had no other choice, basically.
Yeah. Well, and then now it's like, oh, we can change it in a year. No big deal. Let's. What the fuck do we waiting for before?
Draw a name out of a hat while you're at it.
Yeah, no kidding. So I don't know, ridiculous, but we'll see. Obviously, like you said, it seems like this is pretty much what's going to happen. It's just going to matter how we're going to figure it all out. But at the end of the day, I think it's from a fan's perspective, everybody wants it to be as uniform as possible. They're probably going to eliminate conference championship games too at some point if we're going to go this big in a playoff. Whatever, make it the same across the board, and let's figure it out. And we're still going to love the sport, so that's never going to die. But let's try to make this as easy to do as possible and palatable for the fan as possible. So that was one story that came out. Another thing we wanted to just briefly mention here too was, speaking of one of the teams that's been in the mix, and we worry about how things are going on the up and up. Michigan has announced that Sharon Moore is going to be out for 2 games next year on a self-imposed ban for of course their all that they did with looking into other people's signs and whatever else you want to say happened there, but I guess Sharon can cry for a different reason this time. He can cry sitting in his couch watching a couple of football games. But again here, like, okay, well, what are the damn rules and what would actually be the punishment? Because, we always have these situations where a team just like, oh, we're going to and then the NCAA comes along because they have no feet to stand on anymore and say, okay, well, that's good. We'll live with that. What should be the real punishment be, and why now is the question too, because, they fought so hard against this, like, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. What's the big deal? And now we're saying, okay, like, obviously they're getting somebody breathing down their neck here a little bit.
To me, the thing most that caught my eye was just the fact that we allowed to pick, which is not the first time it's happened. But I mean, I guess Michigan's been a champion recently, but I wouldn't exactly put Moore in like the category of like even amongst the best coaches currently. He kind of stepped into a good spot there, and who knows what else is going on in the background, because we saw the second season there didn't go so well. So, but yeah, I don't know. I guess and it also was of interest to me because it seemed like one of the games they might pick was when Michigan plays at Nebraska, and I was like, well, that's good news on that end, I would think. Now, you get to play at home against maybe one of the tougher teams on your schedule, and they're not probably gonna have their head coach. So that was more, because that's why it caught my eye too. And I guess take it as there's some bulletin board material for you if you needed it too, saying we don't need our head coach against you guys in the Big Ten opener. So I mean, you can turn it into a positive from the opponent wise, but I mean, I don't know. It's for whatever reason, it seems like everybody I know hates Michigan, and for that was even before being in the same college as them, and for rightfully so, just the the kind of way they carry themselves and kind of their attitude and stuff. But for some reason, they get the benefit of the doubt more times than not, even though most people don't really care for the way they do business.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's intriguing. I don't know. We'll see more about how all that falls eventually, and if there is some other guidance or recommendations or whatever it may be down the road. Hard to know what real punishments are anymore, obviously, because like we've said time and time again here recently, the NCAA just seems to be something that can't they don't have much to stand on to back themselves anymore, and we don't know if it's going to be a thing here in a hot minute either. So interesting how that's going to be handled. Speaking of the same situation or type of line of thinking, is that there are still rules about going to class, apparently.
At least in some places, yeah.
Some places. Note that you sent over to me here, Akron football's multi-year academic progress rate has fallen to 914, which means they're eliminated from bowl eligibility before the season even starts. They're the first FBS team to become ineligible for a bowl due to academic reasons since 2014, and that team was Idaho the last time it happened, so obviously nobody probably remembers that either. But, here's the thing, though. Like, okay, I think we all understand that, or most of us from the old school times agree that, like, yeah, going to college, part of that is going to class. Like, that's college. So probably do that. Obviously, most of these places have the resources in place where it's not really hard for these guys to, pass those guidelines anyways. You have a whole staff that's dedicated to helping you pass your classes. So that's probably a problem on the universities in themselves. But then, too, like, well, okay, if Akron isn't doing this, who else isn't doing this for real? Like, like maybe they're just being honest, obviously. And it's not a place where football is going to make or break them, more than likely. It's not a revenue huge program. But still, like, where are we drawing the line and what's enforceable anymore? Because obviously the whole game has changed with this NIL stuff and people leaving school each and every year. It's got to be pretty much impossible to stay on track in a whatever course of study you've been in and actually get a degree. So I don't where what are we going with this stuff?
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like anymore it's kind of common practice that most of the coursework's done like in the spring and summer, and you're kind of just doing some online work there during the season, just because the schedule and travel, how you have to travel and how many days you miss and all that stuff is just it's not conducive to the student athlete experience, as they say. Especially, I mean, basketball season, they're traveling 2 and 3 times a week across the country now.
Yeah.
It's just like how. Yeah, I'm guessing you're going to be in geography in the morning, there, pal. But and then it was just kind of surprising, caught my eye that somebody would actually get like, because I was like, man, you just think you got to really do a lot to be like violate, some type of to be banned for, because if you're gonna get a ban like that, it's like with some usually like now a gambling problem or with like a Michigan thing where you're trying to steal signs or off the field incidents, violence, Florida had problems with that in the past, or not a lot of schools, not just them, or maybe some type of textbook issues or people taking tests for kids, stuff like that. But I mean, just to have like I guess a composite score, a rating where you're like ineligible, it's like I wonder if not having like that big of a roster because they were hit by the portal, maybe that affected them, and so like they couldn't really bring that number up. But I probably just maybe there's being too honest too, like you said. It's like, because you got to imagine there's not just one school out of whatever 100 that there are that's not meeting whatever set standards could be.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting story. We'll see, where that goes and if any other schools are ever implicated here in the real near future. Because you gotta imagine that report is going to catch up with a few places, especially like I said now that it just seems like that's an afterthought anymore. I mean, I don't agree with it necessarily because I think it is part of that world. Like, it is college. There's supposed to be other things happening other than just playing ball. But
you're gonna have to get everybody more than not is gonna have to get like a real job when you get done playing. Yeah. So it's nice to have some type of degree, and then you can go from there.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the thing is so unique to me too. Like, I know how hard it was for me, even just considering going from one school to another as an average student that wanted my credits to transfer. let alone an athlete, or whatever that was doing, whatever track they may be on. But that was so hard, even when I was in school, and not even 20 years ago. And I'm sure it's gotten a little better. There's probably more of that leniency now of credits transferring. But at the same time, they don't like to do that stuff because it is a business still. They're trying to make money. They're trying to keep you there. It just now what the hell? You're at 4 schools, like you transferred credits 4 or 5 times. You've lost. You may have dual degrees by the time you graduate, but you don't really get it because you lost so many credits.
Those liberal arts degrees don't go very far, do they?
No, God, no. We know that. Just crazy. I don't know. It's an interesting scenario, and how that ever gets solved, who knows? But it definitely seems like a much different world now than it ever has been because of the way things are set up. So that was a few of the things we wanted to touch on there on the college football side. Coming up this weekend, by the way, they will run for the Black-Eyed Susans and all that good stuff out at Pimlico Raceway for the Preakness Stakes. Of course, the sad news is that Sovereignty will not be part of that field. Their staff decided that this was not a race that he was going to be able to go in again because of a little bit of a ding up there on the heel, it sounded like, at the Kentucky Derby. And, of course, one side of it is you love that trainers are, being honest and being real about what they want their horse to do and how they feel like their health is going to be. But then also it just, it loses the luster of what we all love and that chance of the Triple Crown. So a lot of the horses that were in that Derby field are going to be in this Preakness field, or at least a few of them, including Journalism, who was the close second in that race. But yeah, I mean, it definitely loses the allure. And for a sport that relies on that a lot, especially when it comes to eyeballs, I've heard a lot of talk here recently, and I've read a lot of articles that there's a lot of people in the horse world that feel like this whole system needs to change because it's just not logical anymore to expect horses to be healthy enough to run these 3 big races with that many horses in the field and feel comfortable about their health in the long run. So I think it makes sense. And I've seen some proposals that are interesting, including kind of staying on that first Saturday of the month schedule. Like maybe we do May, maybe we do the first Saturday in June, and then it's the first Saturday in July that wraps it up. So there's ways around it. It's just a matter of breaking tradition, which obviously is never an easy thing to do, and getting everybody on board, whether that be media partners, people in the game, all that stuff. But I think it's getting closer and closer to a breaking point where they're going to have to make some differences because it still has an interest as a sport. We saw that from the Derby, but in order to keep it that way, I think things are going to have to change with the Triple Crown.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's like that's kind of what the sport's known for is that Triple Crown deal, and it seems like more times than not, at least in recent memory, it's like it wasn't even a possibility after the first race. It's like, well, they're scratched or they can't run, and it's well ahead of time too. So you need that general casual audience to kind of make it that big event. Mm-hmm. And I know people kind of the Derby they're going to probably tune into or do something for regardless because that's like the big thing, but the other two, the Preakness and Belmont, kind of suffer if there's not that option of kind of being like, oh, this is why we're watching because we want to see if they win again. And so it's just, I mean, it's not, you might not consider it like, on the same lines of like, football, basketball as far as sports, but it's still a sport. So it's evolved over time too. When they were, when it started and when it was like in its heyday, people didn't talk about what we kind of brought up last show about like just the humane side of it and kind of being, concerned about, how the health of the animals and that type of thing. So that's why it just ran it no matter what, it's like, they're not getting the care and they're not getting checked on and not getting examined like and if they did, they probably wouldn't have ran a lot of times back then, but it was more like their purpose was to run and then they didn't exist anymore. Or if they were lucky enough to make it past that, they got to go stud for a few years, So it was just like just with all sports, times change and things change. And that's, I think you could still do it. Like you said, I think that's a great proposal to kind of do it like maybe that, and then you'd have a big event every month throughout the summer when sports are at a downtime anyways, because we know baseball doesn't have the audience that it used to have either.
Yeah. One other quick thing I wanted to mention on this too that I thought was an awesome idea is so they thought, of course, the suggestion was to separate by the months for these big races, and whether or not even you move them around, maybe that happens too. Maybe the Belmont comes before the Preakness or whatever, however you make it work in that regard. But then they also said, let's prop up the other part of this too, because all these events have big filly races as well that happen usually on the Friday before. So let's make a ladies triple crown with those big races. Let's kind of prop that up a little bit and make that more of an interesting media twist, so that you have that interest. And then you could also do an older horses triple crown where you would stick in some of those other major races, including the Breeders' Cup Classic. And obviously horses usually get better, honestly, after that 2-year-old run when they're in part of the the Derby. Like Curlin, for example, is known now as one of the greatest horses that's ever ran. Was mostly because he won races after the Triple Crown was run. Including that Breeders' Cup Classic. So there's other big races too that could be worked into that and make something like that happen as well. So I think that's interesting. We'll see if that ever happens and ever changes, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So interesting, definitely food for thought. So that wraps up what we had on our schedule here for you this week. We're going to, of course, direct you to our socials for any bets that we have here coming up here in the near future. At SJM Bets, at Cherokee CP. Follow us on Twitter. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe the podcast on all the major podcast platforms. And we'd love it if you would like and subscribe and get the notifications on the YouTube channel as well when we make picks there for you also. All right, that's going to wrap up this week here for you on Everyday We're Covering. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Everyday We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.